Tonight, I will finish my story with the Saga of Sap. When we last spoke, I told you of how I had regained my memories and how I could feel the soul of this planet being tore at by the same forces that had destroyed my previous home. I knew that my new home was now in danger of the same fate. That my friends, the elves, were in danger. The humans around me, my own race that I had created, the kind, were in danger. The dragons, the whole planet. And so, I prepared for war. And I sent out my forces to scout. And I reached out to feel where these crystals were located, and where the seven had gone. And as I reached out for them, I felt something else pull to me. Not all of my brethren were gone. Some had managed not to fall, and yet had not spun off either. They were close by, watching as spirits. And they knew not only where the towers were located, but where the seven were hiding. The first was a king. He had crawled inside of a human and made himself a kingdom. In the center of his kingdom, he had built a massive crystal tower, and that was what I felt tearing at the soul of the planet. And so, using the powers and magic I had developed from my tree, I called upon my brothers the elves, and I showed them what was happening in this far-off kingdom. And my brethren reminded me of previous times when I had been the rider of Kolva, and there were still those amongst the dragons who owed the rider of Kolva a favor. And so I called upon the dragons to carry me and my kind army, as well as elves and other fae, to this far-off kingdom to wage war against this sorcerer king who was tearing at the earth. He was unprepared for such an onslaught. We had dragons and elves, and the kind had learned to skip in unison, anchoring their strength together in a giant flashing rainbow like a skipping serpent of psychedelic flames that allowed us to go higher and higher with each skip until we were able to leap over the castle walls and strike our hooves into the armor, flesh, and bone of our enemies. The kingdom fell quickly. The sorcerer himself was a slightly different matter. He had climbed inside of his tower, his crystal tower, and drew up as much of his strength as he could. I skipped after him, my cloven hooves striking on the crystal tower as I skipped up the steps to the top, where he struck me with an axe, cleaving me in two, temporarily freeing me from my host. And so I reached out and I grabbed him and ripped him out of the human that he had claimed, and I devoured him with my true teeth before being pulled back to my tree. To await my army's return with news of my death, only to be greeted by me at the gates. After this, the size of the army that followed my banner grew dramatically. And with the help of my brethren, we hunted down and destroyed all of the crystal towers and hunted down the 7, no matter where they fled. But war, no matter how justified, will change a people, no matter how kind. Amongst my own, there was born a chaos child named Mavis. I cannot blame Mavis for falling in love with my Marissa. She was the most beautiful of all fairies and the most lovely of all queens. Perhaps one of the 7 had struck a deal with Mavis. I have no idea how he acquired the green glowing orb that he placed in my tree, ensuring that the next time I died, he would be drawn into the tree and not I. But I am no fool. I knew what he had done. But as I have said, war changes a people. And kind King Tal had become a symbol of blood. I was ready. But things would not end the way that Mavis desired. And so, I called out to my brethren for what I should do, and they agreed that it was time for me to go. That with the death of the 7th, my continued presence would not allow for peace. My followers would demand that I continued to skip, to seek out more evil when there was soon to be no more of the 7. And so We changed things. They did not need me, but neither did they need this Mavis. They did not need kings. And so in my place, this time, Inaya would be born. My mother. And so, I set out on the last war on the back of a large black dragon, knowing that when I died, I would not return. I had told Marissa why the 7 must go. I did not have the heart to tell her that I would be dying for the last time. Our goodbye was very bittersweet. And so I took Mavis with me, and we went to fight the last of the 7. On the backs of dragons we flew, and it was a war, just like the others. Grax had come this time, as he had come several times before, not to fight, but to build machines of war. It was almost routine at this point. We had him surrounded. This was the last of his kingdoms. I had learned ways from my brethren to keep his soul from escaping the city if he got killed before I was there. I should have kept a closer eye. I was quite confident that I would die, leap up, grab the last of the 7, devour him as I had the others, be drawn back to my brethren in the horde, and my mother would be born in my place. The kingdom had been conquered. Once again, the sorcerer had been trapped in his tower, and I came in to kill him. But I was too intent on what I was doing. And before I got to the top, somehow Mavis snuck up behind me and shoved a long knife into my back. And not just any knife. Something one of the 7 must have given him. It pulled me away into the knife. And Mavis tried to keep me in the knife, but I broke free. Only in time to be returned to the 7. Or excuse me, only in time to be returned to my brethren. And I watched as my kingdom crumbled from afar, unable to return. And this is where my story as Tal ends.